I'm Chelsea. I'm a 35-year-old office worker. Since my husband Tucker, who is 2 years younger than me, got transferred, we're temporarily living with my in-laws. It's just temporary. Tucker seems to want to continue living with his parents, but I want to find a proper place to live soon and get out of my Mill's house. That's because I clash with my in-laws, especially my Mill, completely. Before we got married, my mother-in-law was already a person with a lot of sarcasm, but it got even worse after we started living together. Chelsea, haven't you gone shopping yet? The limited time sale at the supermarket is already over. You can't even shop efficiently. Honestly. While my company allows telecommuting, I'm supposed to be working during the day on weekdays. I can't go shopping to adjust to the limited time sale at the supermarket. Mill, I've told you many times, but I work during the day, so I can't go shopping before 5 p.m. When I said that, my Mill blamed me as usual, saying, "Ho, being snobby again. You can't even have children, you barren woman." We don't have children between Tucker and me. I didn't check thoroughly at the hospital, so I don't know whose issue it is. I wanted children, but considering Tucker's income, I couldn't start expensive infertility treatments. I had been troubled by my Mill's sarcasm even before we started living together, but it was okay as long as we lived apart. If we lived together, I would be subjected to sarcasm 24/7. While my Phil doesn't directly criticize me like my mother-in-law, he irritates me in a different way. My Phil seems to think that women are old ladies once they pass 30, and since I turned 35, he treats me as such. "Hey old maid, pass me the ashtray." What's the point of wearing a skirt? Nobody wants to see an old lady's legs. If I'm an old lady, then what about 60-year-old you? I want to ask. I'm not one to be easily intimidated, so if my father-in-law and Mill speak disrespectfully to me, I talk back each time. And that leads to further deterioration of our relationship, being called sassy each time. The atmosphere in the house has become tense all the time, and I've reached the breaking point emotionally. However, Tucker, after the transfer, has had many weekend shifts and business trips, and we haven't been able to discuss moving. Chelsea, I have another business trip this weekend. Another one. You just had one the other day. The new branch seems to have a lot of business trips. At Tucker's previous workplace, there were some overtime hours, but hardly any weekend shifts or business trips. There's nothing we can do, right? If the workplace changes, so does the job. That might be true, but isn't it too much of a change? Because of that, although living with my in-laws was supposed to be temporary, we can't seem to find a place to move to. What if we end up living together indefinitely? I was afraid of that. But one day, when I tried to take out laundry from Tucker's bag after his business trip, there was a piece of paper in the pocket of the bag. I looked at it and saw that it was a printout of an online reservation from a travel site. Could it be a reservation for the flight and hotel for the business trip? I thought as I casually looked at the contents, and I couldn't believe my eyes. It turned out that it was a hotel reservation with Disney resort tickets, and for 2 people. The date was yesterday. In other words, it was the day Tucker was on his business trip. Of course, Tucker's company doesn't have any dealings with Disney. It means that Tucker pretended to go on a business trip and actually went to Disney Resort for 2 days. And if there's a reservation for 2 people, it's obvious that he went with another woman. As I was in shock, I heard Tucker singing in the bath. It's a world of laughter, a world of tears. It's a theme song from a Disney attraction that everyone knows. He must be reminiscing about Disney Resort and naturally humming the song. There wasn't supposed to be that attraction at the Disney Resort. But on this fun and exciting affair trip, attractions seemed to be irrelevant. I was extremely furious and stormed into the bathroom, intending to confront Tucker. But then, Tucker's phone rang. Consumed by anger, I answered the phone without thinking. "Hello." "Huh." For a moment, I heard a young woman's voice, then the call abruptly ended. No way. I became convinced. That call just now must have been from Tucker's companion on the trip to Disney Resort. In other words, Tucker's affair partner. She probably panicked and hung up when she heard a woman's voice after calling me. I checked Tucker's call history. Since Tucker has low security awareness, he hasn't even set up a proper passcode. I guessed his passcode would probably be his 4-digit birthday, and bingo. The lock was quickly lifted. However, looking through the contents of the phone made my head spin. There was overwhelming evidence of the affair, no room for doubt whatsoever. The image files were full with photos of Tucker with the young woman. And the dates of the photos matched the days when Tucker was supposedly on business trips or working overtime. To leave even incriminating photos behind, he must be incredibly careless. I was utterly disgusted. Upon rechecking the call history, I found Micah, so I searched for the same name in Tucker's Snapchat friends list and opened the chat screen. Tucker, I love you. I want to become Tucker's wife soon. Micah seems to be longing for marriage with Tucker. A homewrecker. Is it a homewrecker, right? While I was pondering, Tucker got out of the bath. Feels refreshing. Tucker came out, casually drying his head with a towel, and I immediately confronted him. You feel refreshed, huh? But where exactly do you feel refreshed? Seems like various things about you have become pretty refreshed. Who's Micah? Tucker was taken aback when I suddenly mentioned the name of his affair partner. I knew it. You've been lying about your business trips, and you've actually been traveling alone with this woman, Micah. All those supposed business trips and overtime shifts were all lies. Unforgivable. Why would you? Tucker, visibly shaken, I pointed the phone at him. All the evidence is right here in this phone. Hey, you. Did you peek into someone's phone? That's a privacy violation. A man who has no morality talking about privacy violation is hilarious. If you didn't want it seen, you should have set up a better password. Before we got married, I made a promise with Tucker. That promise was to never, ever cheat. If he cheated, we'd break up immediately. I had declared that to Tucker. Of course, I still hold that sentiment. I can't continue married life with a man who lays hands on other women. Let's get a divorce. As soon as I said that, Tucker surprisingly nodded in agreement. I see. Surprising. I thought there would be more resistance. Were you prepared for divorce as soon as your affair was exposed? Tomorrow. I'll go pick up the divorce papers. You talked to your parents about it. Got it. Tucker's agreement was surprisingly nonchalant, but once a declaration is made, there's no retracting it, and I have no intention of doing so. So this marks the end of married life. I felt a tinge of loneliness. The next day, I left home early in the morning. I had to go to the courthouse to get the divorce papers and take care of some other errands. I didn't return home until late at night. When I arrived, my husband and parents-in-law were waiting for me, all three of them. You finally came back. We were wondering how long you'd be wandering around. As soon as my mother-in-law saw me, she started with her sarcasm. With Tucker present, they must already know about Tucker's affair and the divorce, right? Isn't there anything to say before this sarcasm? But instead of apologizing or something, my Mel said something outrageous. Well, whatever. It's great that you're finally leaving. I didn't want to see your face anymore, so it's just perfect that you weren't here until late at night. What do you mean? I asked my smirking Mel. Just as I said. I didn't want to see your face, I was sick of it. Even though Tucker finally came back home, you were in the way. You've been stubborn and rude, not leaving even when we tried to drive you out. So, I had no choice but to use my last resort. Last resort? My Mel smirked. You do know the name of Tucker's girlfriend, right? Yeah, I think it's Micah or something. Why would my Mel confirm Tucker's mistress's name? Hey. Well, you see, I have a friend at Adult Education Center, and there's this person named Georgia. Her daughter is such a polite and lovely young lady. She's 25, 10 years younger than you. Being that young, she can pop out kids left and right, and my Mel confessed something unbelievable to me. So, I introduced Tucker to Georgia's daughter. I was shocked. I never expected my mother-in-law to tell me something like that. Could it be that you facilitated Tucker's affair? Oh, facilitated sounds so negative. I just made an introduction, that's all. My Mel recounted her actions without any remorse, and I was appalled. A mother guiding her son to cheat, and proudly telling his wife about it. What a terrifying mother she is. But it couldn't be helped. Tucker is an only child, so he needs an heir. I thought I'd still accept you as a daughter-in-law if you had a child, but you keep working without ever having kids. My Phil was nodding along beside my Mill. In other words, my Phil knew about what my Mill was doing. Got it. Basically, an old woman like you, who can even have a child at 35, is no longer needed. Now, get out. My Mill triumphantly pointed her finger at me. After a moment of silence, I said, I see. I understand your farts well. I'll leave as you wish. I'll take all my belongings with me. Sure, go ahead. You probably don't have much anyway. Need a ride? Despite knowing nothing, my Mill said with a smirk. But the one who's truly smiling is me. No, it's okay. I've already made arrangements. Say what? My Mill looked surprised because I didn't burst into tears or lose my cool. Plus, I already know you were behind Tucker's affair. Huh. I smirked at my Mill. What do you think I was out doing all day today? Getting a divorce certificate at the city office wouldn't take this long. I spent the whole day arranging for moving and meeting up with Micah, Georgia. Yuck. You met Micah? Tucker asked me in a panic. So what? Do you think I'd let you cheat behind my back without saying a word? I made sure to jot down her phone number when I checked your phone yesterday. I said pensively. Anyway, poor Micah, when I called her and said, I'm Tucker's wife, but I'd like to meet you, she was so shocked. Seems like you've been lying to her, claiming you're single. I spilled all the beans. Tucker, Mill, and Phil were stunned. They never imagined I could pull off something like this in just one day. As it turns out, Micah found out she'd been unknowingly involved in an affair and was deeply saddened by it. Of course, she was furious too. She threatened to sue you both for marriage fraud. I couldn't help but sympathize and promised to cooperate fully. Wait. Tucker stammered, trembling. Of course, my Mill was equally flustered. There were plenty of reasons to sympathize with Micah, so I decided not to claim damages from her. But I plan to add that to the compensation claims against you guys. Compensation? Why should we have to pay compensation? Phil panicked. Well, I anticipated Tucker paying compensation for his affair, but I never thought we'd be demanded to pay as well. They seem to have anticipated their son paying compensation for the affair, but they never imagined they'd be demanded to pay as well. So, you think you can get away unscathed and take all the benefits for yourselves? There shouldn't be such a sweet deal. Of course. Isn't the mental anguish I've endured from your bullying enough reason for compensation? I smiled innocently, and Phil fell silent. And don't forget my profession. I work at a law firm, remember? I've already consulted with the firm's lawyer about how much compensation I can demand. Of course, I've already contacted the lawyer at the law firm I work for today. Wait. Just then, we heard the sound of a car stopping at the entrance. They're here. Hey there, it's the moving crew. I smiled and headed to the entrance. Thanks for coming. I'm sorry for such short notice. No problem. We had a slot open for a late-night job. It worked out well since we had other things to take care of. Well then, let's get started right away. Oh, and be careful with the fragile items, okay? As I assured them the workers entered the house and began packing the belongings swiftly according to my instructions. Wait a minute. Following my instructions, the workers briskly packed up the belongings. Not just my clothes, books, and computer, but also the electronics in the living room and kitchen. Hey, you guys, don't take those. Those belong to us. No, these are mine. I brought all of these into this house. They're my personal belongings. When we first moved in due to Tucker's transfer, the household appliances at my in-laws' house were all old ones they'd been using for ages. As a fan of modern appliances, I couldn't stand it and brought the appliances from my previous apartment. Mill has completely gotten used to the latest household appliances, and it seems she's mistakenly taken them as her own. Robotic vacuum cleaners and cordless cleaners. A high-end microwave toaster oven combo capable of various cooking functions. IH stove, negative ion hair dryers, and espresso machines. You're planning to take everything with you. This penny pincher. Mill grabbed at me, but Tucker stopped her. Mom, it can't be helped. But they're all Chelsea's belongings. It seems Tucker has given up. But Mill, on the other hand, still can't let go. Once you realize the excellence of the latest household appliances, there's no going back, is there? If you're dissatisfied, why not just buy new ones? Although, after paying the compensation, it seems there won't be money left to buy new luxury appliances. While this was going on, workers kept loading the items I instructed into the truck, getting into the truck themselves. Well then, please deliver those to the destination. I'll head there soon too. I waved goodbye to the moving truck as it drove off, and got into my car. Of course, this car is also mine. Hey, where's that truck going? Tucker asked. Huh. Of course, it's going to my own apartment. The one I lived in until you got transferred, my apartment. During my single days, I entrusted the sale of the apartment to a real estate agent due to Tucker's transfer. But since the asking price was too high, it didn't sell at all, and I still hadn't let go of it. The real estate agent kept saying to lower the price, but it's a good thing I didn't. I never imagined it would come to this. I chuckled as I fastened my seatbelt. Oh, but maybe deep down, I was expecting it. Huh. Tucker looked puzzled. Well, because I deliberately set a selling price higher than the market price, so it wouldn't sell. Just so I could always have the option to return to the apartment. Upon hearing my words, Tucker slumped to his knees. You conniving woman. Caught off guard in my confidence of victory, I was suddenly shoved by Mill charging at me while shouting. As I groaned in pain, Mill attempted to throw a cutting board at me for another attack, but was suddenly knocked down by a black object slamming into her, causing her to collapse with ink. Thanks, Crow. I hurried to the new place, still holding Crow, this stray cat that appeared out of nowhere to rescue me. I don't know why Crow was there at that moment, but surely it was because of Crow's strong sense of justice that he came to help me. I'll give him some treats later. After that, Tucker and I got divorced. A claim for compensation was filed against Tucker and my in-laws by the law firm where I work. Since the senior partner took it as a case to train the young associates, it seems like they're practically handling it for free, which is really appreciated. Although it's handled by a young rookie lawyer, it's reassuring to have the senior partner's support. As for the lawsuit against Micah, it's being handled directly by the senior partner, not the young associates. Due to its severity, they're pursuing both criminal and civil charges. It's been a while since he's handled a criminal case, so it seems his skills will be put to the test. After paying compensation to Micah, Georgia, and me, selling the in-laws' house probably still won't be enough. Thinking about the impoverished debt life awaiting those three, I can't help but grin uncontrollably. Although I'm now single, compared to living with those in-laws and my unfaithful husband, it's like heaven. For a while, I want to enjoy a carefree life with Crow, who I inadvertently brought to the apartment.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. "Do you know how much revenue we get from that company?" "We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs. Gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized." Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do." "I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you." "Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.